Semicolons. Let's try and relate it to English again. In English, a written paragraph is made up of many sentences. We don't talk like this in programming languages. In JavaScript, instead of a paragraph, we have a program. And instead of a sentence, we have statements. So we could replace that whole statement with this. In JavaScript, a program is made up of many statements. Just like in English, a paragraph is made up of many sentences. In English, a sentence ends with a full stop. In JavaScript, each statement ends with a semicolon. Now, JavaScript has a very kind of C-like syntax, and you might see, and you will see, lots of code samples that feature semicolons at the end of each line. But please don't get me wrong, semicolons are not mandatory, and JavaScript doesn't have a problem in code that does not use them. And in my experience, many modern developers, especially those coming from languages that don't require semicolons, have started to avoid using them. Now, it's not to say that there won't be any consequences of you not using them. You just need to avoid doing strange things like typing statements and returning things on different lines. Then it will mess up the execution, but 99.9% of the time, you'll be fine. What do I mean when I say you need to just be careful with semicolons, that it only works 99.9% of the time? Well, there's nothing better than with an example. Let me show you. So let's go to, I don't know, JS bin. This is how easy these programs are. I've just selected the JavaScript tab, and let me show you what I mean by having to be careful with semicolons. So if we have a function, let's just call it test, and that function does nothing, and we write to the document and we execute the function. And we're going to get into functions later. Just now I realized in order to execute a function, you need two curly braces. So that's why we had to write test, which is what we've called our function. And we've had to put the two brackets around it. You can see here on the screen, it's undefined. Now let me get rid of these semicolons. And you can see, we've still got undefined. There's no other syntax errors that are coming up. But this is important for you to know. Firstly, every function in JavaScript has to return something. In this case, our function that we've named test returns absolutely nothing. And what that means in JavaScript when it returns nothing is that it returns undefined, which is what we've written on the screen here, which is what you can see. So let's now say that it returns something. So let's go within our function, and you can imagine on a complex website that we've got complicated code, we've got function calls, callbacks, and then at the very end it returns something. And let's say in this case it returns true. So you can see when we write that out, the result is true, which is what we would expect. What about if the result is 1 plus 5? Well, we would expect 6. But this is why I'm saying you just got to be careful with white spaces, semicolons. Sometimes. Let's say I put this on a new line. Your first intuition might be thinking, well, JavaScript doesn't care about white space. So we could do this, but you can't do that. Because what JavaScript interprets this as being is it interprets it being this when it sees that return word. So just be careful, something to watch out for. Let's continue.